Okay, everybody, this is our February ice get together. It's a little looser format and more of a fun topic this time. A lot of people were curious how things went in the shopping mall and what's it like being in the mall. You know, realistically, it's another big room, just like an arena, but instead of seats, we had stores. Um, there were some different challenges that showed up, I would say, from the just the way the place was built and designed. But again, that's probably gonna run into that in every arena. But there were some things, that we dealt with that did make it a challenge. The open roof, we've never done that before. We got a little insight from some other people that have done that in other places. And we'll kind of go through some of that, some of the serious stuff, some of the fun stuff. Just our once your brain goes to mush and the monotony kicks in, find ways to have fun. And this time it was those sheep, and that took a life of its own. And people actually want to know about that, so we'll probably address that too. Um, but the main thing is that thing doesn't happen without the stellar crew we had there. You know, it's that team. I will tell anybody that'll listen is much greater than the sum of its parts because we get away with some pretty ridiculous stuff in some pretty weird places, and we get to have some nice events. Um, I think we've got some slides here. Just this is some of the crew. Um, myself was there. Frank was there. He this time we try to move around who does what. Yeah, everybody can do everything, and some of us we do think one thing or something better than the other, but we try not to get stuck in those roles because it gets old and then other people don't learn. So we've been trying to shuffle that. Here in the last while, Dewey has stepped away and people completely underestimate the job he did. Uh, we asked Frank to step in that role this time to keep things moving and moving smoothly. And I can't say enough. Then you see his other title he earned. We'll get a patch coming, but the chief shepherd role was played perfectly. All the livestock was in well cared for, in good hands the whole week. Um, then next we get to Dave and Dan. They sat in that ridiculous penalty box for I don't know how many days, locked in there like caged beasts. They probably had it worse than the sheep. But they very literally kept that thing going. And we'll get to it more later, but the all of the systems in that building were just about good enough to do what we asked. So they had an impossible job, and they made the rest of our jobs possible. We cannot thank them enough, and it's not the first time Dave was in that role. Dan sat in on that. You know, just so we can have one more body that knows that job. Um, like I said, we want everybody to be able to step into every role. Lauren was there. She manages everything. She spent any time while games were happening or downtime. She was doing her member service role, taking meetings, collecting the money from clubs and uploading. I don't even know what she all does. She uploads rosters from clubs and just does the most thankless job there is. And then she comes to get beat up by me while she's trying to drive the scraper. So that's a huge role. Greg this time he helped with the pedaling, and Peter's not on the list. I think we just were sticking names on here that the people we knew were going to be at the call, and I'm not leaving anybody out if I can help it. These guys will poke me in the ribs if I do, but Greg and Peter and Mikhail, they were working the ends of the sheets, as new people came in, like, yeah, Eli was there, the nominee, Derek, they were regulars, Garrett came for the install. You know, all the, I don't know, new volunteers, all the people that haven't done the nationals with us in a place like that yet, stepped right in, jumped in the middle of the fray, never hesitated, got everything done. And those three, we just show them the ropes. Here's what you do. Here's where you stand. And it went great. Mikhail, he kind of went over to the dark side a little bit. Officials for us to see if there was any shenanigans, but he was timing games. Again, kind of like Lauren. We'd work him like a rented mule on the ice crew, and then he'd go sit there and time a 3-hour game, and then jump back on the ice. We're hauling him sandwiches and drinks while he's timing, and it just over and above. It's crazy what everybody did that week. So, I think get to that next slide. Just as far as what happened there, it was a little warm out, and then that mall, one of the conditions that we're not used to is being able to, we like to pull the air temperature to a place we're comfortable, and they like to make it comfortable for people in a t-shirt to go spend money. So it wasn't quite designed to get as cool as we'd like, and it didn't, literally. So, and then with that glass roof, as you see in the pictures, when the sun did come out, we had a giant greenhouse, and that air heated up faster than you could ever imagine. And there wasn't a lot we could do about it. So we were a little lucky on weather. The airflow was a little odd, again, just because the way the place is designed to, and we'll get into that in depth a little bit, but they have kind of a system where there's a curtain of cool air that protects the ice the best they can, and then a curtain of warm air between that and the stores to keep the stores comfortable. Again, the sun is listed. There was the 2 days at the end that it did get sunny, and the one day that did affect the games a little bit. Thankfully, it didn't adversely affect the games to where we had a problem or maybe cost somebody a game that it shouldn't have. The debris, it's an open 3-ring circus all the way around you. There was the occasional accidental stuff that would spill over the rail. One time we caught some little kids being little kids chucking stuff down. That was just always in the back of your mind, looking above to see if there's problems. And then, like I said, of course, we had the livestock issue, but that was actually a good time. So, and in the bottom here, I'm gonna let David and Dan kind of step in here, talk about what they did to keep that thing going, maybe some more details. As we start throwing it to different people to maybe discuss their role a little bit, if there's a question, if we can see Lauren's got the chat up, so pop them in the chat, or just speak up when it's the appropriate time and ask your questions. But if Dave and Dan, if you guys want to take a little poke at what you went through for those 2 weeks.
Sure, I could take the lead, and then Dan, you jump in anytime I screw something up. Got it? Nope. All right. Let me kind of cover. Not everybody comes over to sit by us and figure out what it is. So let me, for those of you who haven't been at those places, let me kind of cover what it is that we're doing. In a nutshell, what we're trying to do is manage the HVAC and ice plant systems to very close tolerances, which neither one of them are designed to do. And so what happens is, as we all know, you change the ice temperature at the surface.
What does that mean?
And,
I mean,
pardon me?
right now.
Right now, what?
Oh,
I think-
sorry, I'm supposed to be on mute.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. So Sean gives us a starting temperature, a temperature that he wants the surface of the ice at the beginning of practice before the game. And then our challenge is to hold that and bring it up by no more than 1 degree gradually over the next 2.5 hours. Obviously, there is no control system in the world that can do that automatically. So what that means is that we have to sit there and turn compressors on and off accordingly in order to try to make that happen. The process that I use is one that I've actually been developing over the last number of years that Sean and Dave before him have asked me to do this thing. And I was absolutely delighted to have Dan sitting next to me and correcting my errors and making the whole process a lot easier than having to do it all by myself. So as Sean said, the American Dream is a different kind of venue, but really, for us, it was the same kind of problems. It's, the air temp, the humidity, controlling the ice temp, doing all of that stuff with control systems that really are not up to the job. To do this, I personally use 3 different laptops. There's the Eye on the Ice laptop that everybody has gotten the chance to see probably, that we use to monitor the air temp and humidity and ice temp at a variety of different places throughout the arena. That system, though, is pretty complex. And it's something that we put in usually on the day before the start of practice on the thing. So I often bring my own little ice temp so I can figure out what the plant is doing. So as the team is working on floods and everything else, we're trying to figure out how we're going to drive this particular plant on the things. I also keep a PC for logging data. So we basically gather every 15 minutes during the event things like what the air temp is, what the humidity, what the dew point is, what the supply temp for the glycol is. In this particular case, it was glycol. What the return temperature of the glycol is, what the temperature of the floor is, what the temperature of the bottom of the ice is, as well as the surface. And we use that data then to figure out how to make it better for the next draw. So it's a continuous improvement kind of things. In this particular case, it was made more difficult because the ice plant, for instance, was 2 trained chillers, each with 2 compressors and a very simple control unit. And basically, the only thing that we could change was the set point. So we were changing that set point on a pretty regular basis throughout the whole thing in order to maintain the temperature where it was. There was no ability in this particular system to enable or disable individual compressors. But the biggest problem that we had with the ice plant is, and the biggest surprise that we had, was that the glycol mixture was a 35% mixture. Most of the time you get these systems that are 40%, and you can take a 40% down to 5 degrees or thereabouts. And in a room that was as warm as that room, we really needed that extra of 4 or 5 degrees. But at 35, the lowest we could get it was about 9.8, I believe. And yeah, it just meant that we had to anticipate things and start bringing things down a little bit earlier. And I felt like it worked pretty well, except for the midday Saturday when we had sun coming in for the page play, and there wasn't anything that we could really do about it. We were running it as hard as we possibly could. The HVAC system really consisted of, besides a standard HVAC system, they had two large Munter dehumidifiers, and we worked for days to try to get those units to put out colder air, and we're unsuccessful at doing that. So the temperature varied between about 55 degrees on cold days and about 64 degrees on the really warm days. Part of the problem was that the system was designed to provide 40 degree dew point, but we wanted under 30 degree, and so it just was kind of underpowered that way. The other problem was that they engineered it so that the air exchange, all these arenas need to have fresh air coming in and the stale air taken out. They ducted it in with the dehumidifiers. So we could not do what we've done in other arenas, and that is shut down the louvers, so we're not drawing any outside air. We were not able to do that. So we were at the mercy of the outside air. When we got there on Sunday, the dew point in the arena was actually a wonderful 23 degrees. But it warmed up after that, and it got high, as if I remember right. Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we got up to about 38 degrees, something in that range. It was a little under 40 degrees, which caused frost.
Yeah,
caused
right around
problems.
the 40.
Yeah, caused frost and caused problems for the team putting the ice in, made it kind of soft on that, but there wasn't really a whole lot that we wound up being able to do about that. The only other thing I'd say is that from a support standpoint, these places are a variety of different folks. Most of the time they're overworked. So some of them are easily convinced to hand the keys of the kingdom, the control systems, over to us, and others are not. In this particular case, they were not thrilled, but they did it. We had great IT support. Sean did us a huge favor by opening up a dialogue the week before. So by the time I showed up there, we had access into their networks, into the control system, into the building control system. So that was fantastic. The facility manager was less than helpful. He kept gaslighting us on a number of different things, and so it took us things like a trip up to the roof to figure out exactly what was going on with the dehumidifiers, which got me in a lot of trouble, and I don't care. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, all in all, I'd say that we did the best job that we possibly could given this situation. From an event, from just kind of sitting back and thinking about the event, I think the event was actually really successful. Everything that I heard from competitors was that the ice was definitely playable. It wasn't the best in the world, but it was absolutely playable, and the best teams always won. And so, you couple that with the exposure, the people that would come by and ask Dan and I questions about what's going on, I thought was really good for the sport. I thought it was really, really a good event for that. So it's a balancing act in my mind. We as IceTechs, we always want the absolute best ice. But I understand Dean's point of view in that he's got to balance it out. So anyway, Dan, you want to add anything to that?
I think the only thing I would add that we kind of missed out here is in that environmental setup, as we were trying to cool that space, on one side of this rink is also the water park area. And so as we were trying to cool down some of those vents, there was a whole row of them that they couldn't cool down because they needed to keep those warm to keep condensation from happening on the glass that occurs between. So we had that added issue that, but other than that, like I said, the worst was when I got to tap Dave on the shoulder on Saturday morning and said, hey, we see the sunrise this morning. This isn't going to be a good day. But we made it, and yeah.
Okay, I'll pass it back on to you, Sean. Unless you got anybody got any questions?
Yeah, if there's any questions, quick.
Let me add one more thing that I forgot to add here. You know, I keep that log as well as a lot of notes and other things, you know, schedules and things. I keep that in a file on the Eye on the Ice laptop. If you ever get that laptop out and you look on the desktop, you'll see each event has actually its own directory, and you are more than welcome to go in there and take a look and see what it is that we're tracking on this stuff and how we are we're managing it. So no secrets on any of this except during the event itself. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. I have all those binders that they put together through the event. Like Dave said, it's on the laptop. If you got any questions about any of these events, we can dig it out and hopefully find what you're asking about and help you out. But again, that was awful humble explanation by those two, but they went above and beyond and did the impossible, if you ask me. I thought that was great. I mean, Lauren's sitting right next to me. Anything you wanted to add about your experience of the American dream?
I mean, just kind of echoing what Dave said, that I thought it was really good exposure for the sport we had during the install, especially. We had tons of people coming up and asking. Unfortunately, it was mostly, so there's no skating today, but they're asking what we were doing and, you know, what are these markings on the ice? What are you guys here for? Who are you? Are you Olympians? No, but there'll be some here next week. So I think it was a good experience. It was certainly an interesting venue. I think it was well received. It seemed like there were lots of crowds and there were some unique challenges with the facility around the ice, but I think overall they did a nice job of welcoming us there. They had, so we talked about the debris on the ice and, you know, stuff falling from the upper floors, because as you can see from the pictures, the second floor was shopping areas, and then the third floor was the food court. But they had that all pretty well cordoned off by the time the event started, so there weren't really too many looky-loos or people being disruptive around there, which was, I think, a big relief to all of us once things got underway. Frank, anything else?
Is there anything else?
How about Mikhail? Is there anything you have to add to your experience in New York?
Well, my
No.
experience, you hear me?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. My experience, actually, I was extremely tired after making all this stuff, but I enjoyed it. No complaints whatsoever. Only one thing I would like to share, if it matters. I don't know if I want to go into specifics or not, but there was some few mistakes done during the event. I don't know actually how harmful they were, but I was thinking why they happened when they happened. And I think I realized that when we were doing day after day after day after day, same pattern, basically we've gotten a routine, everything was done automatically. Not that we got kind of careless, but I actually lost the focus when we changed the routine. Just a little bit change and everything went sideways. And we kind of maybe need to remind ourselves that when you change routine, you need to step back a little bit and be extra careful and think what you're doing. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, 100%. Those are long weeks and long days, and you're not eating what you should. You're not sleeping, taking care of yourself. You get into that routine and the repetition, and you're just kind of going by muscle memory because you're tired. And here's what we do. Um, Couple ripples come into the plan, and we're going to do this time for whatever reason. And that's when we can have mistakes or problems. You know, if it's something silly that doesn't matter, great, but it could turn into somebody getting hurt, heaven forbid. But it's it's hard to you get in that rut when you're tired and you shift gears. It's tough. And like Mikhail said, you stop, think about, okay, we're changing this, and then keep moving. Yeah, that's a great point. Um, Greg, Greg on here? I didn't see the list.
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah. How about you, Greg? Anything to touch on?
No, I thought it was, I think you guys said a lot, and it was a very interesting event. I think going into that environment was kind of like a real big wild card. Most of the arenas you go to are kind of geared for some sort of, ice sport or something like that. But going into something like this, you really don't know what you're getting into. And, I think there were a lot of variables that you didn't know what kind of control you had, or what kind of control you had over them. But I think, it goes to prove that even when you don't have full control over every variable in your environment, whether it's humidity or ice temperature, air temperature, you can still, play around and find the right combination to come up with good curling ice. But I think that's the key is being able to adjust different things. Like say you don't have full control over your humidity, being able to adjust your surface temperature or your air temperature or the pebble that you use to kind of compensate for that, and still come up with pretty good ice. And I think that's, something, Sean, that you've really taught us over the years, doing these events.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, you know, a ton of hard work and maybe this time even more luck. If it would have been any more sunny days, I don't know if we could have done it, but
Yeah.
thankfully we didn't have to find out.
I think Dean was saying it was sunny the whole next week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would have just changed my flight and left.
I don't know. I could see you running down to Home Depot and just buying a couple hundred tarps and throwing it over that.
Yeah. How many blue tarps? All the tarps.
We thought about it.
It was only, it was kind of joked at, but kind of not. Yeah, the
Yeah,
violent questions.
We've got a couple of questions in the chat. One is, what are the differences and challenges for an open arena like this versus a club with very low ceilings?
I'll start, and Dave, you catch me if I'm wrong, but
Well, go ahead.
in the bigger arena, you have more airspace to hold, more humidity, which changes your dew point. So you're given a little grace there to a point, so you can have some higher temps and manage it in a different way. In a, say, a low ceiling club, you just tighten the tolerances of where you can run your numbers to keep that dew point where it needs to be before you start having problems. But again, If you have that equipment available to you, you can design it and size it so it takes care of the space that it's in and will still provide you good conditions. But it's just a matter of having the people help you design it to give them good information so they can provide the conditions you want. I'm kind of a little tangent, but when we do talk to people about, we're having problems with air movement or the temperature, humidity, whichever, a lot of these, they'll tell them, okay, we're doing curling, we need this dew point or this humidity. And that's kind of where they stop asking questions or giving details. So the engineers or the HVAC people, that's what they hear. Oh, we need to get to that number. And 9 times out of 10, when you go to a place, all that equipment is designed to work hard and fast to get to that number. And as we go through and have our experience in difficulties, airflow is usually a problem that we deal with a lot. So that higher airflow, when they're trying to deliver you what you want quick and fast, actually hurts you because we forget to ask them that we need a gentler airflow. That's kind of almost answered the question that was asked. But if you want some more details, we could maybe delve into that a touch. But that could be 6 calls on its own. But
The only thing I'd add to that, Sean, is that in a club environment, it's not necessarily just the low ceiling, but it's also what the air handlers are, as Sean had said, and what the dehumidification is and all of that. But the other big variable there is, especially in some of these larger venues, you get a couple thousand people, 2,000 or 3,000 people, and that adds a lot of BTUs. It adds a lot of humidity to the air, and those usually come in on the semifinals and the finals, and that causes another set of challenges, trying to figure out exactly what to set the environment at, given what all those people add to the environment. So I think it's trickier in an environment like this, obviously, than it is in a club. Clubs are easier to manage because they're smaller and you don't have all the people in it. So that's the main difference as far as I'm concerned from an environmental standpoint.
So the next question from the same person, Bill, is I've also been to a couple of clubs with very low ceilings and it seemed to run very straight. Is that just a coincidence?
In my opinion, it is. What do you think, Sean?
yeah, my favorite answer, it depends.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it could be 100 things, Bill. But
Yep.
Temperature, stones, the humidity and dew point, could be a ton of things. Probably the low ceiling and the straight ice are most likely a coincidence. I would guess with the right settings and adjustments, you should be able to get it to curl anywhere.
What we do is what I like to call a multivariable problem. There's almost an infinite number of variables on it, and some of those we can control and some of those we can't. And so it's really a balance. As was pointed out before, you can make up for certain deficits on humidity and things by changing the pebble size, by changing the ice temperature. So there's lots of things, and I wish that there was, just a guidebook that would say, if you have this kind of situation, then that's what you need to do. But that's where we leverage off of Sean and his experience. to give us the guidance on what it is that we should try on it. And a lot of it is actually that, just trying and seeing whether or not it makes it better.
100%. Make a decision and run with it. And if it's the wrong one, change it.
Yeah, in our club here in Seattle, we suffered for many, many years from this fear of touching the ice plant. You remember, Sean, when you and Dave would come out and we couldn't get
Yep.
we couldn't get the previous head ice maker to make any kind of changes.
Had to be a little
And that
sneaky.
always, yeah, and we had to be sneaky about it. That always bothered me, and so when I took over as head ice maker out here, I challenged the team that what we were going to do is we were going to make changes. We weren't going to make them willy-nilly. We were going to do them one at a time, and we're going to figure out whether it made it better or worse. But never be afraid to change something. You know, if your ice is running straight, then start looking at all of the variables that affect how the rock goes down the sheet. Is it the pebble? Is it the rock? Is it the humidity? Is it, change those things and see whether you can make it better. If it goes worse, hey, you just learned something, and that's what all of this is about as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I'll shut up.
Oh, you're fine. What else you
So Keith asks, did the white foam work well?
mean? The white foam, we'd like to say we made a forward-thinking style choice. But what really happened was the stuff we normally get from Michigan wasn't going to get there till about 2 days late. So we were literally scrambling on the phone the morning we were going to need the phone, begging, pleading any suppliers that had anything that might work within a 100-mile radius if they could get us 1,400 feet of 3x3 foam. And we found a guy that was silly enough to do it and a fairly reasonable price. And so he said, yeah, we'll do it. It's going to be what it's going to be. And well, it's better than what we got now. Dean took his pickup. Derek Kaiser from the Ardsley Club took his Suburban. I don't know where in the hell they went, but they took off for a couple hours and came back with 2 vehicles stuffed full of all this foam. And it didn't look bad from the 3rd floor. You got up close, it looked kind of rough, but it held the water in and stopped the rocks from sliding off the sheets. So it was better than nothing. We'll probably, what it is just upholstery foam, white upholstery foam. The guy built furniture or something, and him and his wife started cutting foam at 7 in the morning and said we could pick it up at 6. So they made a late night trip, and then we put foam in when they got back. It started flooding that night. But that was, it's just one of those deals. You do the best you can with what you got, and it worked fine.
And I think they did a nice job with it. The foam was reasonably square.
Yeah.
It had flat edges. It froze in nicely.
Yeah.
We didn't have too much trouble with leaks when we flooded around it.
Yeah, no more or less leaks than we ever have. So it was good stuff.
I think my biggest concern with it was that it shed a little bit. I think all of it kind of does. And then the white foam was harder to see on the ice. The gray foam kind of stands out when it sheds, but
that was one concern, that if it did start shedding, would they see it? But it didn't turn out too bad. But how about Frank? I think you want to get to what the people want here.
Okay, so I think you might have picked up through this discussion that these events are they're grueling, they're monotonous. We do, once the games start, we're doing the same routine multiple times a day. So there's always some sort of shenanigans going on behind the scenes, and sometimes they make themselves present on scene. But this event, it was these plastic sheep. So here we have, a picture of our original sheep. We named her, or somebody suggested Eunice, and I chose that as her name. And just a demonstration of how tired we were. It was a couple of days before we realized that her name ended in ice. And the second sheep to make his way down onto the ice was Eunice's partner, Ewan. And we have got a picture there of the two of them sparring at some point during the event. But we can go on. I'll show you where we got them from. The mall, we always have some sort of a rest area, crash pad, whatever you want to call it. In this event, we were a few hundred feet away from the rink in a party room at the Angry Birds miniature golf course. And every day as we walked back and forth between the rink and our rest room, we went past this about 8-foot circle of artificial turf that had 7 of these little sheep on it. And the one time when we walked past, Sean said something to me about, he wouldn't be upset if one of them made its way onto the ice and we have to, work it in somehow. So I said, okay, I'm on it. One morning when we were there, before the public was there and the mall was closed, I guess the technical term is rustled, the legal term. I rustled Eunice down to the ice. The first location I put her, I tried to be as inconspicuous as I could back by the scrapers, just by the boards, because I really thought I was going to get my chain yanked. Either the officials or USA curling staff was going to be like, come on, we're trying to run a serious national championship here. We don't need plastic sheep out on the ice. But actually, it kind of caught on. It took on a life of its own. And the next day, as Lauren and I were walking through from the Angry Birds party room, she happened to look down one wing of the mall that we hadn't gone down before, and down by the Nickelodeon attraction, there was this corral that had to have about 40 of these sheep, and there were a bunch more colors as well. So at that point, it was sort of like, game on. So one by one and in pairs, more and more of these sheep started making their way down to the ice, and we put them in various arrangements. I got busted almost immediately. I went out for a 5th end break, and after I finished sweeping up, I adjusted the position of a couple of these sheep, and I had no idea that the on ice camera was pointed right at me. So that was live on the feed. But yeah, you can see our third picture there. That was Sean's idea to stack a couple of them on top of each other. Like, I don't know if anybody remembers the Little Rascals, but there was one episode where I think there was 3 of them all stacked up on each other's shoulders wearing a trench coat to try to appear as an adult. So we stacked up a couple of these sheep, and curiously, it didn't work real well until I figured out to put the heavy ones on top, which seems a little counterintuitive, but that's how I was able to make them stable. And we used different colors to make it obvious that, this was one sheep stacked on top of another. We dressed them up in, ice crew sweaters, gave them some properly sized equipment. And, this thing just, it got a little crazy. I've gotten a lot of questions about them in the weeks since, but it turns out that these are sort of the mascots of a furniture company, and that company is called Tonic. And we have a link here for them. I think they actually sell these things. Their catalog lists them for $370, but I heard that you can find them for much less. I thought I heard 114 it was at some point. But these are Dottie the sheep. And one of the questions that I was asked a lot is if any of them, made their way onto the USA curling trailer. The answer is absolutely not. I mean, first off,
There's no room.
sheep are social animals, and we did not want to, separate any of them from their herd. And secondly, I actually just looked this up today, but it turns out that if you transport stolen livestock across state lines, it is a federal felony. So, no, all of the sheep are returned back to their corral at the mall to, I assume, continue being climbed on by New Jersey children on a daily basis.
And it is a hangable offense in some western states.
So,
Hey, Frank, did you ever figure out how heavy they were? I was surprised the first time I grabbed one, how heavy they were.
it's variable because they're filled with sand. So it depends on, just how much volume somebody dumped sand into them. I guess you have to, if you wanted to buy these, I think they're shipped empty and you have to supply the sand.
Yeah, it was crazy how much people were going on about these things on the stream chat, texts. Susie's a pretty visible person on these events with her officiating job, and she was getting tons of calls. We had some dressed as officials. We kind of reined it in on the last day. We're getting down on sheets and we're ready to go home. They had Eunice dressed up as a hogline official, and they were going to put her on the blue carpet next to the championship sheets. I said, we got to put her back behind the scoreboard. We can't have it literally in the game. But, as much as I wanted to, I would have loved the hogline official sheep. We can't put that in the event, but everybody had a good time with it, and it was good fun after a long couple of weeks. That was kind of the fun thing of the event. Yeah, it's perfect. I don't know if there's any other chat or anything to go with our trip to New Jersey and adventure in the mall, or if you got anything, I guess speak now. We are in the middle of mixed doubles nationals now. Pigs, hogline, yeah. Yeah, we could have had pigs at the hogline if we found them. But we're gonna probably wrap this up a little quicker if there's not a lot going on. Yeah, we're getting kicked out of our room. The media somehow took over the staff room. Shocking.
I can't see if I'm on there.
You are.
Okay,
Yeah.
before they wrap it up, I just want to say how much I appreciated the efforts of this group here and all the others that were part of that ice making effort in New Jersey, because it was not easy. And I'm the one who probably takes the blame for being there. But it was amazing in the end, and real credit to this crew. And Sean, I don't know if you mentioned Dave's Hall of Fame award, but you certainly can if you want to.
Not yet. So the other, besides the sheep,
Hey,
the
Dean,
last,
Yes.
Dean, before you leave, thank
Yeah.
you for all your support. We couldn't
Oh,
have
no
been
problem.
successful without you and, your team being behind us.
yeah, there was some negotiations behind the scene we had going on a few different fronts, but in all, this definitely be remembered as a great success. Like Dave said, it wasn't the best ice they've ever been on, but it was very far from the worst they've ever been on. It was good and consistent the whole way through, and that's because a lot of people worked really hard.
Yep.
And that will definitely not hasn't been unnoticed. So thanks again.
One more,
Dave,
one more question to Dean, if I may.
Okay, geez, I
Dean?
didn't mean to take a lot of questions. Yeah, Mikhail.
Off
I
of
got a
ice
tie
making
for you,
topic,
Mikhail.
little bit different topic. I don't know if you can reveal it or not. It's up to you. From PR and financial point of view, was it successful event? And if it was, do you plan to do something like that at that scale at the shopping mall or similar facility in the future?
So on the public relations media side, it was like an overwhelming success. On the financial side, it was about pretty good, maybe a little better than most of these events. I think the one thing that we encountered, like our revenues were higher, tickets, the money we made from tickets was higher, but then we also had some costs associated with the events that were probably higher than at others. But yeah, so overall, a huge success, really, Mikkel. And if we think of the media impressions we got in the New York market, and the interest we got in the championship just because we were there, it was great. So how quickly we go back to such a venue, I'm not sure. I don't know if these guys would kill me if I went back too quickly, but certainly I think we have a number of good venues in the mix going forward. And I think part of it just indicates that, when we can get into like a big market like that, and there's certainly other big markets we'd like to be in, it's worth it. Maybe next time, maybe not doesn't necessarily mean we always have to be in a mall, but we obviously exposed the sport to a lot of people who wouldn't have seen it normally.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, the last thing I have, the last couple years, after Dave stepped back and, Dewey and John, we don't see as much. One thing Dewey and I talked about is, we felt that, Dave ought to be in the curling Hall of Fame here. So he went to work on that, downloading forms, making calls. He, reached out to some staff, employees,
The nomination.
peers of, that have worked with Dave. My role in the thing was to make sure Dewey had the contacts he needed. And then, every time Dewey hounded me, I would hound the committee. I found a couple key people on the committee that I could chat with, candidly, and see how things were moving. And, super proud to say that through all of Dewey's hard work, they're gonna put Dave in the US Curling Hall of Fame in, April at, Club Nationals in Fargo. So there'll be a bit of a ceremony and to do about that there. Obviously there'll be an official announcement from USA Curling and, much better detail to come as far as what that, presentation looks like. But, this is, I think, a group that needs to know that that's coming, and a lot of you have been part of that. And, I know when I spoke to him about it, after they let him know he was getting in, he was hugely humbled, like you would expect, and, wouldn't take any of the credit. He wanted to talk about all of you guys that he's worked with before. So hope if you can't be there, at least reach out and let him know. And if you can be there, that'd be great. Should be a fun day, night, whatever it is. And, like I said, we'll have more details to come. But if there's nothing else, as far as this call, we'll probably wrap it up and find something to eat and get a nap.
There's nothing in the chat, so I'll go ahead and shut
Beauty.
things down. Thanks,
Thanks for
everybody.
being here, everybody.
All right, thanks, bye.
Bye.